Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards, welcoming you to InFocus, a weekly program where we take a closer look at the happenings within and across the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, your government. As the world faces growing challenges, St. Kitts and Nevis is making significant strides towards a more sustainable agricultural sector. We'll be discussing the progress we've made, the hurdles ahead, and the vision for the future as we work towards the CARICOM 25 by 25 agenda, an ambitious plan to increase food security and reduce the reliance on imports by 2025. Joining us for this discussion are Acting Director of Agriculture, Yushena Jeffers, and later we'll be joined by Communications Head of the Department of Agriculture, or should I say the Ministry of Agriculture, Sharifa Flanders. Stay with us. It's InFocus, your government, your business.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to InFocus, and as mentioned, we are joined by Ms. Jeffers, the new Acting Director within the Department of Agriculture, and later we'll be joined by Ms. Flanders. But no, I'll welcome you, Ms. Jeffers. Welcome to the program. It's your first time here.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
And I should mention, Ms. Flanders is no stranger, so I'm sure this is not going to be the first, or should I say the last time that you're here. You're pretty regular featured here.
Yes, yes, we'll be here very often.
Okay, so as mentioned, of course, now you are the new Acting Director of Agriculture. Tell us a bit about the functioning in terms of that capacity, your background in agriculture.
Okay, I'll start with a brief history. It started in secondary school, where I did the double award program, agriculture science. My love for agriculture developed there, and then I journeyed on to CFBC, where I did the agricultural program. That was very instrumental in basically setting the foundation for the love that I had for diagnostics, plant diagnostics that is, and genetic engineering. And so I went off to Dalhousie in Canada to do my bachelor's in plant science.
The university, right?
Yes, and then I went to the University of Leeds to pursue in bioengineering.
And that's in
for
the
plants.
UK?
Yes,
right.
University of Leeds, yes.
Okay. So why agriculture? What is so special that appealed to you in terms of agriculture?
Why not agriculture? Out of all the things we are to do in this life, one of the things we must do is eat. Mm-hmm. So with such a fundamental function, I chose to take that part. We all have to eat, and we have to produce the food that we have to eat. So that is why I love the sector so much.
And in terms of your family, were they supportive? Because of course agriculture is seen by some persons in particular, like they're more so like the farming. They don't necessarily look at it in terms of the business side. They don't look at it in terms of the marketing side, you know, all those other aspects. And they consider most males should be farmers. Was it difficult for you for your family to embrace yourself in that field?
No. My parents are very supportive in whatever I do. I don't come from a strong background of farmers. However, I've seen the impact they have on society, and that was one that influenced my love for the sector. So I decided to take it up, and they supported me.
And imagine you're the Director of Agriculture today, so it certainly is paying off.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so based on the work plan of the ministry now, what are your top 3 priorities coming into this post? And how long have you been within the ministry itself?
I started in 2020, and I took a brief break to pursue the master's degree, and then I came back, jumped back in the waters again. Our top 3 plans, I would say the 25 by 25 agenda, the food reduction, food safety is one of our priorities, and basically getting the regulations together, the legislative framework to support number 1 and number 2, the import and the safety of our foods. So those are the 3 areas of priority.
Food safety, what exactly does that mean?
Now, with the growing increase in cancer cases, persons are wondering if what we intake in terms of food is having some impact on that. And so we decided that we would look at the system to see what are the elements within it that can cause us to get sick from the food. And with that, we decided, not just locally, but regionally, it's a priority regionally, that we ought to look into why we are getting sick, and not just from the sickness, but the nutrition side. How nutritious is our food? We have deviated from our staples, which is the yam, the dasheen, and we are now going into more fast food, which tend to be a little more processed and dangerous. So those are the reasons why food safety is definitely a priority.
Now, there is also, because of course it's agriculture, so it includes marine resources as well,
Yes.
too. And also there is that concern as well too in terms of microplastics with regards to the fishes, that they eat them and then we in turn consume the fishes as well. Is there some sort of a collaboration that the department is having with, say, the Ministry of Sustainable Development and Environment or some other government agency, whether it be regionally or internationally, to seek to cut down, or is it left up to sustainable development?
Well, we do have a Department of Fisheries and Marine Resources that works closely with sustainable and environment to ensure that those aspects are taken care of. That is a separate department within the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Resources. So they are dedicated to that mandate.
Right. Okay. So tell us now about the strategies that you're going to use to achieve the goals that you mentioned. There are 3 of them that you just mentioned. And of course, as I mentioned, food safety was an important part that I wanted to have a bit of a discussion on. But what strategies are you going to employ to achieve those top 3 goals?
Well, we are working closely with the farmers for the food reduction. We are looking to increase our production. Last year, we started off by giving a 25 by 25 support package where we looked at what the farmers need to maximize their potential. And from that assessment, we were able to give out some inputs to help maximize production. And we are looking to basically focus in on the areas where we fell short last year. So in terms of, for instance, onion, we would have fell very short in onion, and we are looking to work together with the onion farmers to see how we can assist in maximizing their production and reaching the target. One of the things we did so far in the year is meet with the farmers and tell them about the monthly targets we are looking at. So for instance, let me refer to my notes. Just to Meta alone, we are looking to do a monthly acreage of 2.9, and to achieve that 2.9 we would need 820 trays of tomato seedlings. So what we did, we asked the farmers to submit their planting schedule to see how we can reach that 820 trays so that we are able to meet the target. The monthly target goes into the yearly target, and then that is the overall food import reduction.
All right. So, and of course, we're going to delve a bit more in terms of some of these targets yesterday. Now, I want to ask about the ministry's review, the agricultural review and planning meeting that was held yesterday. Now, of course, it's an annual event that takes place, and
Yes.
it was observed under the theme celebrating 30 years from soil to sea, the journey to sustainability. Tell us about that theme.
The theme was basically derived from basically 30 years. We are 30 years in, and we basically wanted...
We? Who is we? Is it, you're talking about the ministry? What are you talking about?
The ministry, the department, all of us. It's a group effort,
okay.
So that's why I'm saying we. We wanted to basically see where we were and where we're at now. So the journey from celebrating 30 years, the journey from soil to sea, incorporating the marine sector also, and how far we are at in sustainability, okay, and achieving the UN SDGs goals. So we reviewed last year, and then we presented our plans for this year at the event.
Remind us of the SDG goal that you just mentioned, and how is it factored into the focus of the ministry?
Well, the SDG goal is an international goal. However, it's funneled down to the region and then funneled down to each member state. So it's not separate from any other goal. We just tend to plan our activities around achieving this goal, and the food import reduction is one of that initiative. For zero hunger, I think that is SDG number 2. So we look at the goals overall, and then we see how we can plan our activities and our initiatives around those goals.
Right. Ms. Jeffers, give us a summary, if you will, of the information that was shared yesterday at the event. Because, of course, it's a big deal within agriculture, and it really sets forth the focus of the department and the various departments within the ministry for the year. And it's also a sense of accountability, as in the ministry reporting where it's at and what needs to be done. So give us some insight into yesterday.
Okay, so we started off, we had remarks from the PS and the minister, and they basically reaffirm our commitment to the 25 by 25 agenda. And remarkably, we had our key speaker being from SL Hosford, one of the managers of SL Hosford's, I think it's Valumart, where she basically shared her commitment, their commitment to supporting the farmers. We then went into the Department of Agriculture, where I shared some highlights from both the crop division and the livestock division, and then we went into the production data from 2023, compared it to our annual targets and to what we want to do. We then went in to describe some of the initiatives other than that supports the 2025 agenda, and then we basically had some feedback from our stakeholders, and that was basically the event.
And how would you, because you're looking at it from a different lens now, of course, as the acting director, how did that discussion go in your opinion? There is room for improvement. That is what I can say. In what areas? And from which side? I
see it as a communication barrier. There's some barriers between the farmers and the department. However, we are looking to improve that. Most of it was because of breakdown in communication, you know, persons not hearing back from persons. The farmers haven't seen their extension officer for some time. So those are the problems we wish to address and key in on this year also.
Strategies to address that?
One of the things I've done personally is to ask for some reporting from the extension officers. We also implemented a form where the extension officers would go out, and once they visit that farm, the farmer would now sign off to say, well, this extension officer visited me this time, and this was the conversation, and this was my problem, and how we plan to basically help me in solving my problem. So there are those forms. We are looking to implement them in March. We sat down and we compile the information we want to derive from the form, and we are set to implement that in March.
And that also helps with accountability as well, to ensure that the officers are making sure they keep close contact with farmers.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And so we want to speak specifically now about some of the crops, and they are very important to us here in St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of our food production, and of course, as you mentioned, in terms of meeting the 25 by 25 agenda. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break and allow Ms. Flanders to join us on set before we get into that. So we'll be right back. Viewers, listeners, stay with us. We'll be right back with more In Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus, and we are joined now by Ms. Shaira Flanders, who is on set with us, and also, of course, we still have Ms. Jeffers, who is the new acting director within agriculture. Ms. Jeffers, should I say Ms. Flanders, welcome to you.
Thank you for having me again, Ian.
Yes, absolutely. Now, one of the questions that I wanted to touch on before we jump into the food production is, as we mentioned the theme, celebrating 30 years from soil to sea, the journey to sustainability. And Ms. Flanders, probably you can chip in here in terms of the messaging behind the theme and the communicating it, not just to stakeholders within the ministry, the employees and the staff themselves, but in terms of the farmers and the fishers who you have to interact with, in terms of the persons who are out there doing agro-processing, in terms of the persons who are ordinary out there buying agricultural produce, and what that theme should really mean to them.
Well, I mean, the theme basically speaks for itself, and the 30 years really stems from our celebration for the upcoming Agriculture Open Day, which we will touch on because there's lots to touch on with regards to that topic. But we didn't just want the theme to just be an Agriculture Open Day theme, because the focus of the ministry, inclusive of the Departments of Agriculture as well as the Department of Marine Resources, is focusing heavily on meeting, like Ms. Jeffers mentioned, our sustainable development goals. And as you know, the government's journey to sustainability is a really key focus. So we wanted all of our goals, our objectives to tie into that as well. And it goes without saying, from soil to sea, because we're inclusive. Agriculture is not just about the soil, but also the food that we get from the sea as well.
So how are we making food, agriculture in St. Kitts and Nevis more sustainable?
Our practices, basically our practices, we know that we have lots of work to do, and I think it is a fantastic idea to shift the focus away from just making sure that we eat healthy. Yes, we want to eat healthy, but we also want to ensure that we're doing it sustainably. And so there are different methods that we can have our farmers engaging when it comes to producing food. And so those sustainable practices are things that we would like to see for future on the island.
Ms. Jeffers?
One of the things I can add to that is that our practices have improved to make our food more safe. Farmers are now aware of what they should use and how often they should use it. And we also seek to integrate organic into what we do. So those are methods we are using to make our food a little more safer.
Because organic farming, of course, is something that really is growing, you know, across the globe. Most persons are concerned about the pesticides, as you mentioned, that may be used.
Which makes you sick.
Yes, and the fertilizers and different stuff, as you mentioned earlier, in terms of the possible linkages to cancer.
Yes.
And so organic farming, and of course we have Kitchen Hill, which basically was a model of organic farming, and to demonstrate how it was done. And so have persons really bought into the idea of using more organic farming, because the practices, how does it compare to what they normally would use, whether it be for the fertilizer or whatever pesticide they may use? Is there an extra cost that they would have to absorb?
Not necessarily, because most times they tend to use natural stuff. However, the difference is that some use pesticides and others don't in the organic sense. However, in the organic sense, you also can use the biological aspects to help you in terms of managing your pests. Some tend to use garlic, things like garlic, neem, lavender. Those are natural repellents for pests. And so within our organic fraternity, we do have the Gideon Force is an example of a fraternity that practices organic agriculture. They tend to use this stuff and composting, you know, trying to make your fertilizer from your kitchen waste and stuff like that.
So then, should there be, is a suggestion from the department to these persons who are engaged in this stuff to try to label their products as organic, to help to, not that the department is concerned about creating the competition, of course, but ensure that persons, when they're buying food, that they make the best decision, an informed decision. And if you prefer to support organic, then you're encouraged to do so. Should there be some sort of a labeling that is done? Any suggestions to the farmers or the stakeholders how this can be achieved? And Ms. Flanders, of course, feel free to jump in as well.
We are journeying because most of our locally produced food and packaged well. The Bureau Standard, in one instance, have taken up that mandate of trying to revitalize the sector to start going into packaging and labeling. To be honest, overseas, to put an organic stamp on your produce literally makes it more expensive, it's more appealing because persons now have the reassurance that it is safe. We always encourage our farmers to do it the safe way, and if you do it the safe way, in order for you to package your produce as organic, you have to go through certain testing. And once you pass that testing, you can then label your food as organic or pesticide free, you know, and those type of things. So that is a mandate we are working together with Bureau Standards to get our farmers up to scratch when it comes to labeling and getting into the organic field of things.
Not only that, but I'd like to add that just recently, the Department of Agriculture, along with the Food and Agriculture Organization, hosted a workshop for farmers. I think it was maybe just about 2 weeks ago, if so long ago. And to add to the message that Ms. Jeffers just touched on, it also adds the marketing value to the products. And we want our farmers to have that opportunity to market their products and their produce as well. It was really, really satisfying to hear them after the workshop state that there were lots of things that they were able to learn from this particular workshop, because most of them, they're vendors, they're not just farmers. But when they sell their products and their produce, they just see it as, I get it from the farm, you know, and I go to the side of the road, or I put it in the back of my truck and I sell it. But the cost of your products, as well as the proper labeling of your goods, could actually increase the market value, which would be adding money into their pockets as well.
Right, and of course we encourage them to be reasonable in their pricing structure, you know. Right, so let's talk a bit now, as we mentioned, in terms of some of the details from the agricultural review and planning meeting, and we want to keep it specific to, as we're speaking about producing food, and you mentioned, of course, the crops, and somewhere there were decreases and somewhere there were increases, and I'll ask our producers to put up slide 10 for us, and it basically lists crops such as cabbage, cantaloupe, onions, and tomatoes. Now, what is the significance of these crops as they're going to be shown on the screen? And for those who are watching, of course, those who are listening, I apologize, they're not able to see. But if you can always go on social media, on Zaraise Television, and take a look at that. And tell us a bit about those particular crops. Why the 14 crops were listed?
We have diversified from monoculture to a more open slate of farming. So when we move from sugar, we diversify into the roots and tubers. Then we went into the cash crops, which are the quick crops. And now we are somewhat journeying into cannabis, which is not food, but it's diversification at the end of the day. What we did is we liaise with the farmers to see where their strengths are in certain areas, and that is how we came up with it. It's really 13 commodities for focus. We have fell short in some instances where pests dominate. However, we were able to see some increase in production for some, where we basically, the support we gave was targeting those areas, the cash crops especially. We tend to consume a lot of the cash crops on a daily basis, and so that further increase our likeliness of targeting those crops.
Right, it's basically giving the support that the food that we basically eat, that,
Yes.
that we use the most here in St. Kitts and Nevis. All right, so comparative data now and we'll just ask to put up slide 11. Comparative data from 2023 shows that there were dramatic increases in several areas, and that would include watermelon, cucumber, squash, and pineapple. What factors influence the increases there?
When you look at those are cucurbits. They love water. And one of the major support areas we gave was to the irrigation aspect. We gave out some water tanks, and we gave out drip lines, so persons who normally are rain-fed now have access to water because we gave out those inputs, and those inputs will definitely maximize their potential in those areas, and we've seen the reflection of that. So we gave out the inputs, they utilized them as should, and we were able to see an increase in production because the crops now have the adequate amount of water they need to grow, to fully grow into some healthy big crops.
Right, and that would be slide 11 where the comparative data is shown. Now, the question is, of course, St. Kitts and Nevis, much like other countries in the region, there is a drought. There's a decreased water, rainfall, I should say, which affects the water availability. So how come, that, as you said, that those are the crops that were able to, that consume more water, so to speak? Yeah, what was used to help to influence their growth there, to deal with the water shortage?
Well, for some time now, we have journeyed into water harvesting, and if you go on most farms, farmers tend to harvest their own water from the rain. So even though there are drought times, we tend to have water stored on the farms so that they are able to feed the crops that you have there.
And Ms. Flanders, tell us about the ministry and how it works to ensure that these measures are communicated to farmers and the public so that they could understand the importance of conserving water, understanding the balance between having water that is available to drink, water that is available for manufacturing, water that is available for farming.
Well, we had the pleasure of visiting majority of the farmers, well, on their farms, of course, for those persons who received the input from the Department of Agriculture. And what I can say is the farmers focus on making sure that they get the water, especially for those persons who have the tendency to, I don't want to say they prioritize the soil, but for those persons who really work from the soil as opposed to maybe in the greenhouses, they've been focusing heavily on harvesting, rain harvesting, right? Which is really important because what I noticed is from most of the visits, they are really excited to show us the areas where they get the water from the drums, and they're showing us the way that, you know, they have their technique, how it was set up, which has heavily helped them with regards to the production. Another thing as well is the fact that the matting that the Department of Agriculture provided along with the drip line, the irrigation system, has helped to cut their labor time in half. And you know, we have an older population of farmers, so it was really, really satisfying to hear that the matting also helped with the production as well, because you know, with the matting, it actually reduces the hard labor of weeding constantly. And we have a lot of farmers who told us that they spent lots of time weeding those crops that were mentioned, and so I feel like the combination of, you know, these inputs is really helping them.
And of course, the matting and some of the drip pipes that you mentioned, they were provided under the drip project that the
Irrigation,
department
yes.
has, which is a drought resilience irrigation project.
Yes.
How has that been going?
Well, fantastic based on the results that we have here. Based on the data, I mean, like I said, it's really satisfying to know, because at the annual review and planning meeting yesterday, when Ms. Jeffers mentioned the increase production in the cooker bits, I said, wait a minute, watermelon increased by that much? It's really good to hear. I love watermelons. I was really pleased to hear that we have, you know, so much watermelon on the island, that we have the ability to produce so much food. We shouldn't be importing foods like this, and that really is the goal, to reduce the importation of these types of crops that we know we can produce on our own.
Right. So, Ms. Jeffers, do we expect to see expansion of the drip project, that we could continue to support the farmers?
In the later quarter of the year, yes. It might not be in terms of tangible, but technical support, how to maximize the practices that go along with the drip inputs, and basically see how it increases production.
Right. Okay, and we go back to slide 11, and I want to ask about the significant decreases now that we would have seen, and that would be in carrots and sweet potato, and also in peanuts. What caused the decline?
Okay, in particularly for the sweet potatoes, we tend to have a lot of pest problem when it comes to the monkeys and the pigs. We had a lot of instances where pigs went into person's farm and uprooted their vines. Also, with the sweet potato, persons tend to reuse their vines a lot, and we are now realizing that some of our vines have a virus problem. So persons would plant the vines and no tuberization would happen.
What's that? What's tuberization?
It's actually getting the potato.
Okay.
Because it's a root crop, it goes underground, so the tubers are growing nicely, but when the plant is growing nicely, but when you dig it up, there's no tuber. The virus tend to cause this effect on the potatoes. So that was one instance. In onion is a niche area, and it has a very small season in which you can plant it, and we didn't see that type of interest from the farmers. However, those that did plant had problems with, sorry to say, water and the heat. So we didn't see much of, we saw a decrease in that area.
And carrots?
Carrots, same thing like onion, the heat, and it has a small window of opportunity to plant. If you don't catch that window, you're basically out until the other season.
Okay, all right. And so that highlights, of course, the importance of climate change and being resilient to be able to continue to grow crops and to feed ourselves as we try to promote food security and to, of course, becoming a sustainable island state. Okay, so now let's talk a bit about now in terms of livestock, and slide 14 would be able to show some figures there. Now, pork and beef production have almost tripled in production, while mutton and Chevron, and I had to look up to see what Chevron was. I had no idea. It's goat meat. It's also up. Any comments there?
We've seen interest. We've have a lot of new farmers coming to the swine industry. In particular, we established a project where we facilitated the housing of some of these new farmers, and we are now reaping the results of what we did there. And we also geared our efforts towards the technical aspect, where we basically told the farmers that this is your production guide, give you a production guide in terms of nutrition, reproduction, and stuff like that. Things you need to do to maximize your potential, and they did heed to that call, and they did accept the technical advice, and that's why we are seeing the increases we are seeing in meat production.
Right. Okay. And so with the increases in meat production and the increases in production in some areas in terms of crops, and Where does that stand in terms of helping St. Kitts and Nevis to achieve its goal in terms of the 25 by 25 agenda that we mentioned in CARICOM? And I should mention that, you know, there seems to be some concern if it's really realistic for the region to meet these totals. And of course, while you can't speak for the region, you can speak for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Based on the numbers, when we crunch the numbers, I won't say it wasn't realistic. However, we knew that we had our job set out for us. We knew that we would have to make some massive investment in order to reach our targets. However, we fell short in most instances for our crops and the livestock sector. However, there was improvement. Now, the 25 by 25 is not a one-stop shop. It's basically getting the machine running to get that organization, that increase in production, that willingness to want to maximize your potential so that we can reduce our food import bill. So it's not that after 2025 we would stop, no. This is just the beginning. This is just the foundation we are laying to ensure that we could continue to increase production so that we are able to be self-reliant.
Right.
Yes.
For those who, I was just going to add, just to give a brief explanation, for those who may not be aware, the 25 by 25 agenda is to cut food imports by 25% by the year 2025. And in St. Kitts and Nevis' case, that's a whopping $50 million.
Yes. I just wanted to add really quickly that the reason why, I'm happy that she mentioned that, because the theme when we had our launch was 2025 and beyond. Right? So it doesn't just stop at 2025. Hence the reason why we added the and beyond. Because the truth is, we don't stop eating in 2025, do we? Right? So the idea is for this to continue and to benefit St. Kitts and Nevis long beyond 2025.
So it's not a matter of, oh, I missed the goal, or I made the goal, I've done the job.
And it's over.
It's over, right? It's continuous.
No. And one of our initiatives that was forward-thinking, what we did is we imported some banana slips, plantain slips, dasheen, and pineapple. And what we are looking for is that these slips that we imported is the generation to a commercial plantation for these crops. So, for instance, banana. You have one banana plant and that can give you up to 3 banana plants after that. So it basically serves as a nursery for future generation to come.
What about the feedback from farmers and fishers and other partners, whether they be within the government or outside of government, whether they be locally based or representing some regional agency or international agency or a friendly state as well too. Of course, we know the Republic of China, Taiwan is a huge partner of the government, and all that would include agriculture as well too.
Yes.
What was the feedback from the stakeholders at the review meeting?
Well, a lot of them was happy for the assistance that we gave. However, like I said, there is breaking communication, and that tend to hamper some of the things we wanted to do and some of the goals of the personal goals of the farmer. However, on the region side, most farmers in other countries are basically jealous of what we have going on here. They're basically saying, look at this government basically giving the farmers the inputs to ensure that they produce. We haven't seen that anywhere else. So for the region, it's going good. They're very impressed with what we have going on here. We have some countries looking to adopt some of the initiatives we have, and in that case, we are doing pretty well.
Ms. Flanders?
I just wanted to add as well, going back to the fact that Ms. Jeffers mentioned that we saw improvement in a lot of areas. We touched on the inputs. I want to make sure that we don't miss. We did provide inputs, so that's for crop farmers as well, but in the area of livestock, persons also received fencing wire, because the fencing wire, as you know, it's like a protective guard, right? And so that was one of the things as well that helped with the improvement of the meat production. Not only that, but the Department of Agriculture made it a priority for some of the farmers to get the electrical wire on their farm. We visited a lady in Stapleton. Her name is Itina Pemberton, and that was the first example of the installation of the electrical fencing wire that I saw, and I was really impressed because she explained to us how the assistance from the Department of Agriculture has really helped to deter the attacks from the monkeys and other pests that have prevented her from, losing more crops, because farmers in that area have complained about that problem. And once you're in the area that has lots of forestry, the likelihood of experiencing the monkey attacks would increase. So that was one of the things that I also wanted to add there as well. And hopefully, maybe Ms. Jeffers can tell us, hopefully in the future we could see more of those things being included in the plan.
Does the electrical fencing, in terms of the voltage, does that pose a threat to humans?
No, it doesn't. And I can testify because I touched it myself.
And you're still here with us.
It was shocking, but I touched it myself. And really and truly, it's not something that is posing a threat to us. And to be honest with you, no monkeys were hurt in the process. They were not killed in the process, but they received the shock so that they would now stay away from this area. You are no longer welcomed here. And hopefully they would go back and tell their very good friends what their experience was when they visited this particular farm today. And I hope that we would be able to see that on other farms as well going forward, because it has really been helpful.
Okay, now as we speak about, of course, decreasing the food importation bill, poultry is something that persons in St. Kitts and Nevis love. They love to eat chicken. And of course the government would have commissioned officially back in October 2024 a chicken hatchery and a layer facility. What's happening there?
Yes, the layer hatchery is basically looking to supply poultry farmers with day-old chicks. Normally we would import those, and that was one of the hindering factors to help us get extra sustainable, because we are pretty sustainable in egg production. So we wanted to basically cushion the entire value chain, starting from the day-old chicks. Coming the end of March, we would be starting to sell our first batch of day-old chicks to the poultry farmers. So we are well on our way in that regards.
Would be a wonderful opportunity if we could export some eggs to the United States. Of course, the cost is tremendous up there right now. And
I'm telling you.
Yeah, all right. Let's transition now to, of course, as we talk about celebrating 30 years, and Ms. Flanders mentioned it, 30 years in terms of the agricultural open day. It's a significant number, 30 years. Tell us a bit about how the event has evolved over the years. And I appreciate that you were not there from the beginning, neither of you were, but you would have seen it grow, and I'm sure that you may have experienced it as a participant as opposed to someone who is organizing it. How was it evolved?
I mean, of course, it is completely different experiencing it as a child compared to now. But as a child, the memories that I have of the Agriculture Open Day are some of the best memories attending that particular event. And so I have to say, in comparison to then and now, I actually feel quite honored to be in a position to improve and see how we could continue to make this national event bigger and better each year. And of course, it goes without saying that for the 30th anniversary, we have to top every single year that we've hosted this event. And I'm really looking forward to that, because 30 years is no easy feat.
And how would you say that you would think you would contribute to the development in agriculture here in St. Kitts and Nevis? Having an open day where vendors can go out and showcase their produce, where persons with livestock and even the aquariums, I mean, you know, you can see those fishes. And of course, there's the agro-processing, another part of it that is very important. How would you say that the open day would have helped to develop those areas?
Showcase, exposure, you know, gain a market, the connection, the linkages that come from the interaction that goes on and openly, it's what helps to make it basically good.
I mean, the agriculture open day in itself, it's a marketplace.
Yes.
It's a marketplace that lasts all day for 2 days. It doesn't get any better than that. We've had persons enjoy the event so much that they've been begging us for a third day. Oh my goodness. But the work that goes into the 2 days, it's a lot, right? So that is still something that is in discussion. But for now, what I can say is, not only does it provide a marketplace for our food producers, but it is a family-friendly event. And it humbles us. It really does. It's a reminder that this is who we are, because we don't just celebrate and showcase the best in agriculture here in St. Kitts, but it also provides the opportunity for families to attend, and for friends and loved ones to come together and celebrate the culture of our people, the entertainment. And another thing that I also want to add, one of the things that I was reminded of last year when I attended the open day, because you know, sometimes when you're organizing, you're so caught up in the work of it that sometimes you forget to just enjoy. So last year I made the decision on the Friday, after we've done all the work and we've seen the success of the event, in the afternoon I just wanted to just take a breather and enjoy. And so I visited what we had as the petting zoo. And I realized that that was one of the most important aspects of the Agriculture Open Day, because the students, they were so intrigued by the careers and the animals in agriculture that it all made sense to me in that moment. This is the reason why we do it. We don't just do it because we're celebrating and offering the best in agriculture. We're doing it because we are inspiring a generation of younger future veterinarians. You know, we have younger agronomists who might be coming up. And that type of exposure is something that I don't believe that you can get anywhere else. Hence the importance of having this particular celebration.
Right, and of course exposing technologies and techniques, of course, like say in agro-processing.
Exactly.
Those are the areas as well to that, you know, you'd want to encourage farmers to expand their mind. That don't just have fruit and have them go to waste when they are getting a bit older, but you can process them and extend their life.
Yes, because we have live demonstrations all throughout the event, and sometimes the things that you're looking for may be from a workshop at the department, because we don't always have the time to have all day workshops. The Agriculture Open Day provides that learning opportunity for food producers, whether it be our farmers, our fishers, our agro-processors. We know that this is information that they can get when they attend and participate in this event.
So persons are traditionally looking for it earlier in the year, but I understand that it's been moved this year. Tell us why it's been moved and what's planned for this year as well.
Okay, so we are hosting Caribbean Week of Agriculture. For those who don't know, that is one of the biggest regional events in agriculture. Just like sports have Carifta and culture has Carifesta, it's Caribbean Week of Agriculture for the sector. We are hosted and we are looking to get approximately 400 participants, delegations, persons from allied agency, and we basically felt that we would get a bigger, better stage to put on our exhibit or open day, and that is why we decided to feature it on the week of activities. Also, we thought it, seeing that it's our 30th anniversary, what better way than to go with bigger exposure? So that is our thinking behind factoring it into the week of agriculture, Caribbean Week of Agriculture.
Okay. So you mentioned it's a week. When is that week? What date is that?
It stems from the 29th of September to the 3rd of October.
Okay.
Yes, so the event will be held on the 2nd and
the
3rd of October.
Okay. All right. And what new features, as you mentioned, 30 years, you have to go bigger and better, as they say. What new features, what new innovations can we expect?
Well, of course, you would see the protected structure. We are somewhat moving to a more climate resilient space, so you would definitely see the protected structure. One of the things we want to display is the diversification, basically from sugar to now where we have cash crops or staples or roots and tubers and stuff like that. So you would definitely see that display. We would also have displays from our allied agencies.
Before you continue, how will that be displayed? That transition from sugar to where we are?
Literally.
Ian, you have to be there.
Yes, literally.
You have to be present. Ian wants us to give away all of our secrets.
It might be a time
It's
machine.
not going to happen. We're not going to tell you exactly yet. We have a lot of time. We're going to roll out so that you would know gradually. Ian, you think you're smart, you know, but we're on to you.
All right. Ms. Jeffers, you will continue in terms of the allied agencies.
Yes, they will definitely have their research, their areas of innovation and display. Also our practices, how agriculture has mechanized from manual labor, the manual hoeing and picking, to now having heavy equipment coming in and harrowing for you and stuff like that. All of that would be on display for our 30th anniversary.
Is it going to be at the same place?
Yes.
Oh, yes, it will be. It's our home now.
Yes, it's our home.
We can call it our home now, officially. It
Right.
is.
So will there be anything new added to the event? And I appreciate again, of course, that we're still a ways away, as you mentioned, but anything new to the venue that will be done to accommodate these new features and to, of course, accommodate even more people, because as you mentioned, there'll be a crowd here, a number of delegations, perhaps some 400 persons, who, of course, you would like some of them to go and participate and learn a lot more about what we're doing here in St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of agricultural production. Any changes to the venue that will help to accommodate that?
Maybe you will probably extend the fences, because as you say, we would have much more persons and we would have much more vendors. So we'll definitely need a little bit more space. However, one of the problems we had last year was the dust. We are looking to minimize that this year by establishing like a little walkway for the transportation and the vendors. Anybody coming in, you take the road, you take the path, so that we can minimize the dust that was affecting us last year.
And to add credit, the Ministry of Agriculture listened to the feedback last year from the patrons, and we're so happy when persons provide the feedback because it helps us to improve the product. And so based on the feedback we received, we immediately jumped into action and grasped the area. And so for those persons who were worried last year about the dust affecting them, not just in the walkway, but generally across the field itself, you won't have that worry this year.
Okay, so the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, and you mentioned it's on par with, in terms of related to agriculture, it's on par with Carifta, it's on par with Carifesta. Probably could develop a nice name that sort of gives it a bit more catchy rather than to say the Caribbean Week of Agriculture. But in any case, where will it be held? What's going to be happening there?
Well, the proposed venue is at Marriott, the Marriott, St. Kitts Marriott Hotel. Much of it is basically meetings and seminars where the exposure in terms of research, innovation, what is happening within the sector is being displayed. We have lots of presenters. We also have the ministerial persons, the ministers from each island coming in and basically engaging in forums where they make decisions about the sector within that week.
So participation, is it just limited to invited officials, or would local farmers or local producers, processors, whoever, will they be able to participate as well?
Yes, everyone is able to participate, everyone. everyone, from your little daughter to the farmer to the researcher. Everyone has the ability to participate.
And of course, more information about registration, etc., that will be made available later on.
Well, we have registration open because we
Right now?
started early. Yes,
For
we did.
open,
We
yes.
started the registration process really early. So we do have registration open right now. Persons who are interested and you need more information, you may visit the Department of Agriculture as well as the public market. Also the Ministry of Agriculture at Port Zante, Building 16, Port Zante, for those persons interested, like I said. Another thing too is because we are celebrating big, we've been getting questions on the admission. So we have increased the admission, which of course is expected because bigger and better means that we're going to, of course, need more of the resources. And so we have increased, the norm has been $5, and so we've increased it to $10 for the adults. Of course, it's still the persons, children in uniform, they enter for free. If you're out of uniform, then you pay the regular price. Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the Caribbean Agriculture Week, how do you see that, having that event here in St. Kitts and Nevis, advancing the national goals for agriculture?
Economic benefits. Our farmers are able to engage within the week. Most times when it's overseas, there is limited space for those who can attend. However, having it here, our farmer now has the ability to get that level of exposure, interact with the researchers, the innovators, even down to the ministers, everyone. So our farmers basically are the ones benefiting from the Caribbean Week of Agriculture.
Yeah, something that I also want to add to that. The farmers will be benefiting. Well, let me say the food producers will be benefiting because, like you said, it's for everyone. But the key stakeholders, the key highlights will more than likely include the discussions on food security. The regional stakeholders could share their best practices, so it gives us the opportunity to learn from those persons who maybe are excelling in an area that we need to improve on. Another thing as well is the collaboration on the different strategies. That's something that we look forward to because we need to collaborate. We have to collaborate. That's the only way that we would be able to enhance food security.
And it also gives an avenue to showcase a lot of what we discussed earlier in terms of what the Department of Agriculture is, well, the Ministry, of Agriculture is doing in terms of, like, say, under the drip irrigation system and the inputs that are being made so that while persons may be, as you use the term that you said, jealous, there's an opportunity now to see how they too, governments, that they too can be able to perhaps adapt and use to their own benefit their own farmers, ways that they can help to boost their production. Because at the end of the day, of course, the 25 by 25 agenda is a regional initiative, and of course St. Kitts and Nevis is also concerned about helping our brothers and sisters, because the more the region becomes independent in terms of each territory, then the more we become interdependent on each other, as opposed to being affected by external conflicts such as what is happening overseas in Ukraine, which of course is a huge supplier of grain and other aspects that will take place out there. Right. Okay, so now in terms of back to the Caribbean Agriculture Week, in terms of the collaboration now with, again, international and regional agencies, regional partners, what are you looking forward to there?
They basically support the event. It's a shared responsibilities between all stakeholders, FAO, ICA, CARICOM Secretariat, of course, and our local government. So we've seen much collaboration as usual. It will just continue and get even better this year.
Ms. Flanders, we look forward to having you back sometime a bit later in the year to take us a bit more into what's being planned for the Agriculture Open Day.
Of course.
But in the meantime, I'll ask you to give any final comments as we are about out of time here.
Well, I'm looking forward to the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, mostly, not just the Agriculture Open Day, because this is the first experience for me. and I'm really looking forward to the discussions, the insightful discussions, I should say, from the regional stakeholders, the experts who will be visiting St. Kitts. And I feel like this is actually going to be an opportunity to not just talk about agriculture, but to promote the island as well. We know that we're going to have persons taking lots of photos and videos while they're here in St. Kitts. So I'm looking forward to the exposure.
Mr. First?
Yes, for me, any takeaways? I like to basically get a closer feel with my farmers, basically work closer together in achieving our goals, get on to our mandates like food safety and stuff like that, and basically achieving what we plan to achieve. So the work is there to be done, and we are definitely want to get it done.
Right. Yushina Jeffers, Acting Director within the Department of Agriculture and Communication Lead Sheriff Flanders from the Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of InFocus.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
We'd like to thank you, viewers and listeners, for being with us as well for this edition, and we trust that you will join us next week at the same place, at the same time. Remember, it's InFocus, your government, your business. I'm Ian Richards.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.